That's right, guys. It is the 80s. And I am so glad you joined me today. Hey, you know the routine. Go get that cup of coffee, that virtual donut, pull up a chair, kick off your shoes, and stay a while and enjoy Mornings with Ken, the YouTube version. Hey, this show goes out to Don Adams, a friend of mine. He suggested that I do the things I missed in the 80s. Now, this includes things like things I didn't take part in, things I didn't see as movies, or things, fashion, anything that I missed out on in the 80s, or ignored for the most part. But 80s were a great decade. I really enjoyed growing up in the 80s. Just a great time to grow up. Less technology, although technology was booming. So growing up, growing to what it is today. But I enjoyed the 80s. 80s had, for one thing, 80s had some of the best music out there. You think about it. In the 80s, you had the 70s music that you grew up on if you were born when I was born. So you're old enough to see the 70s, hear and enjoy the 70s music, and then it morphed right into the 80s. With such acts as Blondie and ABBA, just to name a couple. Well, of course, Michael Jackson and all those 70s hard rock bands made it to the 80s, and new bands popped up like the hair metal, new wave, punk, and great time to grow up. But hold on, I need another sip of coffee. So, where was I? Anyway, you would be surprised of what I missed out on in the 80s. And, well, I'm looking at my notes, and I'm not sure if I want to talk about it now or later. But, again, this all started because of my friend Don Adams. He was shocked that I never saw the movie Top Gun. Never saw it. Had Tom Cruise in it. I really wasn't a Tom Cruise fan. I mean, to me, Tom Cruise was kind of a girly man. He was in Risky Business. What other movies? He was in a lot of movies, but he was young and getting his career started, and I just didn't care for Tom Cruise that much. And I wasn't that type of guy that was all about typical guy stuff, like, hey, we're going to see a movie about, here we go, Danger Zone. We're going to watch some movies about real men flying jet planes and all that. I kind of I wasn't that guy. Like, I mean, I like action and adventure. Arnold Schwarzenegger and action people like that. I can't think of his name. Like all the Rocky movies. Sylvester Stallone. But not that typical 80s good-looking, all-American guy flying jets. This doesn't appeal to me. And I still haven't even saw that movie. I promised them I'd watch it, and I haven't. But I heard it was a great movie. I seen parts of it, but even the parts I seen were just too, girly, falling in love and whatever. But one thing that I did miss, and I'm ashamed to admit this, because I didn't hear this song until the 90s, when a friend of mine introduced me to this song. I heard of the group but I didn't know this song. I knew their other songs, but apparently this song was one of their first hits, and I kind of missed it. I don't know what happened. The B-52s, of course, with Rock Lobster. Somehow, I missed out on Rock Lobster. Or was I saved from Rock Lobster? No, it is it's a pretty good song. Weird song, but I like weird stuff. So, yes, I missed out on Rock Lobster. Now, I could roam if you want me to. I could go roam to the Love Shack if you want me to. But I didn't see no Rock Lobsters. So I don't know what happened. But another thing I kind of missed out on, and I think the B-52s were brilliant. I really do. I think they were a brilliant group. But also in the 80s, we had Swatches. That's right. I didn't mispronounce that. Not watches. We had Swatches. Yeah, we had Swatches. Now, if you never heard of a swatch, they were your bright colored bands, pink and blue and purple and all your typical bright colors of the 80s. And so all the bands, you could get different colored bands, but over the clock centerpiece, little rubber straps crossed over the watch, and you can get different colored bands to go with your watch. So a rubber band-like thing would go over the top of the centerpiece of the watch, and they were all the crave. A lot of my friends in high school, they all had the Swatches. And I was like, why? What? Just give me a black and white watch. Like, I don't want a fancy watch just because it's colored. And kind of a cool history about them is they were made by a Swiss company that were losing business to the cheap watch market. So the Swiss company made really expensive watches. But at that time, companies out of Japan, Japan really boomed in the 80s. They were making cheaper watches for a cheaper market. And they were taking the market. I think they had Citizen's watch, which I guess back then was a really cheap watch. I'm not sure how they are today, but Citizens and another brand. I can't think of the other brand. But Japan was making cheap watches and capturing they were capturing the cheap watch market. So the Swiss company came out with these Swatches to gain that market. Right. It was the 80s, what do you know? So I need another sip of coffee though. Hang on. That's a good cup. Alright. Another thing that I'm glad I did not take part in, but I saw it. I saw it with my very eyes. Ooh, that's scary. I saw it with my very eyes. And I'm glad I did not partake in this. Parachute pants. Did you see me in parachute pants? I'll be honest. The first time I seen parachute pants wasn't in high school. It was my youth pastor. He was the first one I saw wearing. I came to youth group one Wednesday night, and he looked like he forgot to get dressed and had pajamas on. And they were the pants were all like splattered with paint. I'm like, what's the matter? Did Dave forget to put pants on today? But, you know, I guess he was that cool youth pastor, you know. That, you know, nowadays the youth pastor wears skinny jeans. Back then, hey, Dave, if you're listening, hey, I love you. But that's the first time I saw a parachute pant. So what it was like almost like sweatpants, but a really thin material that gathered around your ankles. And it literally looked like someone took a paintbrush and just splashed your pants with paint. I'm glad I'm glad I missed out on that one. Oh my goodness. Another thing that I missed out on, another movie I missed out on, was Purple Rain. I know. Where was I at in the 80s, you know? But I loved the song. Prince was a genius. I loved the song Purple Rain and pretty much everything Prince recorded. He's a musical genius, but I never saw the movie, never cared to see the movie. For one, growing up, how I grew up, I had to go ask mom and dad for money. You know, if I want to go to the movies, I got to say, I'm in high school, I'm not, you know, I'm like, Mom, Dad, can I have, I don't know what it was back then, $6 to go see Purple Rain? No? Oh, okay. So I had to be very careful how I spent my money, and I was not going to spend it on Purple Rain. I mean, I love the songs, but I don't know. I don't know how I feel about making movies out of songs. Man, you know, I don't really know, but so I did not see Purple Rain. Now, another one you're going to be shocked on is I didn't watch MTV. I know. I didn't watch I didn't watch MTV. MTV was on cable and you had to pay for cable. You think my family's going to pay for cable? No. The only way I got to watch MTV if I was at a friend's house. And alright. Think, Kenny, think. Don't go there. So at a friend's house. So I watched MTV videos at friend's house. I mean, my family, we're not paying for cable. The only way we had cable, we were so poor. Only way we got to watch cable is if we moved to another house that we rented and the previous renters didn't call their cable company to shut off the cable in time, we got the leftover cable for a month. So we would be like, oh, hey, let's see if this is a live cable. And then we screw it into the back of the TV. It was, oh, we got cable! That's the only way that the Lotney family got cable back in the day. We did not pay for any cable. And I was so happy to have cable, even if it was for a couple weeks, free. But well, this is a good song right here. This is what the 80s were all about. All right, so that's kind of the stuff that I missed, guys, in the 80s that I did not partake of or did not know about. So, Don, I know this isn't exactly what you wanted, but it's the best I can do. I mean, I was there in the 80s. I saw and heard and conquered and did what I had to do. But I'm glad I avoided some stuff in the 80s. So let's go talk about things that I enjoyed in the 80s. I think some of the best movies came out from the 80s. I really do. And one of the best movies of all time, well, actually there's two, And this type of genre I would call a coming-of-age genre of movies for teenagers. But two of the best is The Breakfast Club and The Outsiders. Now, kids out there, if you haven't seen The Outsider, it's everybody should see The Outsiders. First of all, I had a tremendous cast of young talent, and it's your growing up. It's a movie about becoming who you are and growing and where you fit in life and where you stand. It's a good movie. And also The Breakfast Club. The Breakfast Club, coming of age movie. Another one, you have to see The Breakfast Club to understand it. Again, it's a coming of age. Where do I fit in life? These kids are all in detention together after school, and they come from different backgrounds, different groups, peer groups, and it's how they interact with each other during detention. So it's a good movie, and I am so glad I got to see that movie. So another great movie that I really liked. I would say this would be horror comedy, and that's Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice was a weird movie. So of course, it starred Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice, but it was such a fun movie, but like a little bit of soft humor. I would, not slasher, not overly demonic, but it was a funny horror movie, and it was just, to me, it was one of the first movies, well, not really one of the first, but it was a unique movie because it was such a unique topic about a family moving into a new house and it being haunted. But you'd have to see the movie because it's a great movie. And another one that I'm going to tell you about that snuck by. I mean, I saw it. I think I saw it on cable, I believe. I'm pretty sure it was on when we had some illegal cable. Or should I say some leftover cable. A horror movie called The Stuff. The Stuff. And I don't know, that movie, it was just a weird movie. And now that one is kind of just straight horror, I guess. But the movie The Stuff, I guess it's when I first tried it, I noticed like them companies trying to make movies with the technology that they had that was growing. So you got to watch the horror movie The Stuff. It's a pretty good movie. Another one that's, well, this takes us to another category. Horror, just straight up horror. Of course, you got Friday the 13th. That kind of the essential horror slasher movie. Between Halloween and Friday the 13th, those were kind of like set the standard. But also, another one, Motel Hell. Motel Hell. And again, I didn't see that in movie theater. I saw it on that leftover cable line that we had. And Motel Hell, it kind of was funny, but really creepy. To me, it was very creepy. So I think there was a newer version made. I think, if so, don't see the newer version. Go back to the original Motel Hell, and it's pretty weird. It weirded me out. I would never meet these people in real life because it's. But I highly recommend it. Thinking back to the 80s and some of the great movies too, action and adventure. And what I really loved, as far as action and adventure, was Raiders of the Lost Ark. Raiders of the Lost Ark was a fantastic blockbuster movie. Of course, you had Star Wars coming in from the late 79, I think it was, and then you had Return of the Jedi, Return of the Jedi. Or was it? You know what order they're in. But anyway, big blockbuster movies really became a thing. I mean, a lot of blockbuster movies happened. And Raiders of the Lost Ark, that was a fantastic movie. Just a fantastic movie. Some of the great comedies I enjoyed in the 80s, Spaceballs. I know. Hey, no judgment on Mornings with Ken. I know. Hey, if I have new listeners, maybe you saw the first YouTube video and I was doing a religious theme movie. Sorry for the interruption. But this show is about a lot of things. This show is about mental health. It's about marriage. It's about family. It's about fun. It's about silliness. But it also takes on issues of faith. And it will continue to do that. But I have to have fun because this is my therapy, self-therapy. So, but that being said, Spaceballs, hilarious movie. Some of the best lines and just the silliness of Spaceballs I really enjoyed. And another good movie, National Lampoon's Vacation. Classic. So many one-liners in that movie are just a funny movie. National Lampoon Vacation, where they go to Wally World. You guys. Sci-fi, kind of like action, kind of sci-fi. Back to the Future. How could you go wrong with Back to the Future? Just. If someone said, Ken, wrap up the 80s with one phrase, I'd say Back to the Future. It captured the feel of the 80s, and it captured the sound of the 80s. It really did. Back to the Future was a fun movie that really captured the 80s. It just a fantastic movie. Hey, I'm going to run out of time. You guys got places to go, people to see, things to do. So let's get into the music. Some of the best music. Some of it you're hearing right now. I got some little Van Halen playing. Really some great music. You had the new wave that came in with the unique videos. Aha, Take On Me. Perfect song. Love it. That was... I don't know how you guys were in the 80s, but when I heard Aha's Take On Me, I'm like, that's just brilliant. Just simple, but yet brilliant, especially if you saw the video. And there were so many groups. Again, what made the 80s music so good was the music coming in from the 70s. You had some of the hard rock of the 70s, and you had the really, I think what had an effect on new wave was some of the dance music of the 70s, disco scene, and I could see how that kind of morphed into pop music, and it planted the seed in a little bit of new wave. And of course, punk music has many mothers and fathers. Punk music played a part of that, but new wave really was a new wave of music that came in, and you had so many different styles. You had the heavy metal, the hard rock, you had the Motley Crues, you had the Stripers, you had the Iron Maidens, you had the Dawkins and Night Ranger, Sister Christian, Sister Christian, essential 80s music right there with Sister Christian. I mean, really great stuff. Oh man, unfortunately I'm running out of time. I got so much to talk about. But Flock of Seagulls, Modern English. I mean, how could you miss out? Dokken, one of my favorite groups. And but you know what I really loved about the 80s was Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan. Because Ronald Reagan, to me, was the best president that I've ever had in my lifetime, that I've ever seen. Ronald Reagan was like your grandpa, like your favorite grandpa, you know, a grandpa you could trust, that you felt he meant the best for the country. I think he might have been the last president, in my opinion, that had the best for the country in mind. I really do. I know there's people that would argue on the left, but Ronald Reagan, I think, cared more for the country than he did a party, the Democrats or the Republicans. He didn't get along with many Republicans. Actually, he did a lot of work with the Democrats too. Like, I think he was just unique how he was able to get things done with not having, you know, basically a lot of support from his own party and the Democrats. I mean, he did. There's people that actually loved him, but he really had the best for us in mind as a nation. And he was successful at what he did because he really helped us win the Cold War. For all you youngsters out there, the Cold War was after World War II. I'll give you a little history lesson. Russia, Soviet Union at the time, the Soviet Union and America, we didn't get along. There's untrust. We didn't trust each other. We started building up our nuclear weaponry, and basically Ronald Reagan caused the collapse of the Soviet Union, basically because he outspent them. He outspent them on nuclear weapons, but it kept America safe. He planted a little bit of fear and uncertainty to Russia. Like, you don't want to mess with us, Russia. And he helped us get out of double-digit inflation too. After Jimmy Carter left office, we were in the midst of double inflation. The rates were up, and Ronald Reagan had his hands full when he walked into office. It was bad times. Believe me, my family was there. My dad had lost his job at that time, and we were really facing some hard times as a nation. And by lowering taxes, which he called Reaganomics, he helped stir up a successful economy that grew. And one thing that people may not like to hear, they don't want to believe, is that for the minority community, he was one of the first presidents that really, the way he worked the economy, it helped the minority community. It never grew any faster for the minority economy than under Ronald Reagan. Because Ronald Reagan didn't care what community you were in. He wanted the best for America. And he wanted everybody to succeed. And so God bless Ronald Reagan. I mean, he really helped our nation out at a difficult time. Hey, I don't know if this show was fun for you today. It's kind of fun for me to reminisce about old times growing up, and I wish I had more time, but I don't. I got to get going. But I do hope you guys have a wonderful day and enjoy your day, have fun. And hey, you know how bands have their set list on stage, like taped to the floor, so they know what songs are left. And usually you could buy them off of them for a couple $100. Well, hey, if you want my Mornings with Ken notes, you can have them for $1 million, and you can have my Mornings with Ken notes. No, I'm just kidding. You can't have them. You wouldn't want them. But don't forget, this is the YouTube version of Mornings with Ken, but you can find me on Spotify, the Anchor app, Apple Podcasts, wherever you stream your podcast, you can find Mornings with Ken. So I really want to thank you for joining me today, and I really appreciate you guys. Tell somebody about the show, and I'll see you next time on Mornings with Ken.